Hello, and welcome back. I feel like I've been a little random lately, but I'm trying to speak more from what's brewing inside of me because I know the more authentic you could be, the more people are drawn to you. So I'm trying to play with that energy. So what came to me was being feral. Like, be that feral business coach, speaking what needs to be said and just allowing and trusting that whatever comes out is what people need to hear, which is a total different way than I am used to. I've been measured in a way of trying to say the right thing. And I'm trying to break that and just be me. Just say what comes to my mind without fear of what other people would think, if people are going to like me. And in human design, I have a defined throat. So I know there's a lot of power in my voice. And just trusting people do want to listen to me and moving with that energy. So today, I want to leave a short and powerful episode. I've been talking a lot about fear, and partly why I talk about fear is because I know those things that are fearful for me are things that I need to do, and they will get me to where I need to go. If I just listened to the fears and didn't do anything, I wouldn't be here. Part of that fear is the stories that we tell ourselves. If we're looking for a reason not to do something, we will find a reason. Your brain is great at finding rationale for why you shouldn't do something because it wants to keep you safe. But today I want to flip the script and I want you to just pick any fear, anything that you maybe have been resisting, you know you need to do, but you just haven't. And I want you to think of the worst case scenario. What is the worst case that would happen if you did the thing? If you just said, fuck it, I'm doing it. What is the worst thing that could possibly happen? And I want you to make it extreme, whatever comes to mind. What is the worst case scenario? And then I challenge you to say, so what? Say, going to a live speaking event and speaking in front of 200 people. If the worst thing that happened is I die, okay. Then I won't have to deal with these fears anymore. I could go to heaven and then it'll all be over. I mean, that's extreme. But when I was 20, I was thrown into a position where I had to go in front of 400 people and speak, which was terrifying as an introvert, but I pushed myself to do it anyways. I think speaking events is something we could all relate to, so I'll use that. My fears went to the worst place. I could make a complete fool of myself. I could forget everything I was supposed to say and just stand there, blank stare on my face. There was a million things that could go wrong. I could be walking up to the microphone, trip, fall on my face, and go to the hospital. I get up there and everyone starts booing at me because whatever I'm saying, everyone hates. I could have a wardrobe malfunction. There could be all these things, these stories you tell yourself because we want to protect ourselves. And so when we allow our brains to go to the worst case scenario, experience, what would I feel if that happened? It somehow calms the fear. So when you allow yourself as a leader to think of the worst case scenario, tomorrow, your team is pissed off at you. They're all threatening to quit. And you show up to work. You were doing great. And then you have to deal with this. What's the worst case scenario from that? Your team leaves you. Then you have no team and everything's up to you. And now you have to hire out this new team. But when you allow yourself to go to that worst case scenario, it allows your brain to then start thinking, well, then what? I mean, I love what I do in my business. But if my team suddenly quit yesterday, maybe that's a sign I need to redirect. Maybe that's the path I'm being led down and that'll give me opportunity to hire new people. Maybe that was a sign that wasn't the team for me. It allows your brain to kind of conceptualize something different. I think so many of the fears that we have come from this place of not necessarily rational, because what's the chances in my entire life that I have tucked my dress into my underwear as I'm about to step onto stage to talk in front of 400 people? Very slim chances, not zero chance. There is a chance, but I have never done that. So if I'm allowing myself to feel that worst case scenario, like feel it in my gut, how would I feel if that happened? It somehow calms you when you get up on stage because you've already felt that worst case scenario and your body knows, well, I made it through. What is nuts to think about is your brain does not know the difference between reality and some irrational thought. So if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, your brain does not realize those negative things aren't actually happening to you. These worst case scenarios, your brain begins to think, oh, that happened. I survived. Yeah, it would suck if worst case scenario happened, but you survived. You made it through. You'll teach yourself you could do difficult things and survive. So you were able to think of a worst case scenario for something. It makes it a little easier to get yourself to go do it. If that's the worst case scenario, and the chances of that actually happening are like 10%, let's say, okay, I could live with 10%. Let me go do it. Because once you think of the worst case scenario, you could then flip it. And what is the best case scenario? I get up on that stage. Everyone's applauding. I've said magical words. They're just eating up everything I say. That would be amazing. I would feel amazing. And so then you're allowing yourself to then feel that emotion. And then start envisioning that. Because that is more likely to happen than the worst case scenario. Because you were invited to speak for a reason. They saw something in you, wanting you to come speak in front of this crowd. So lean into that, knowing the best case scenario is more likely to happen than the worst case scenario. And really allowing yourself to feel both extremes of emotion and not fearing either of them. Yes, there will be fear, but allowing yourself to know that you just got to try. Part of it is you just have to experiment and try and know that anything can happen in life. And by no means can you predict what is going to happen. So if you allow yourself to recognize the worst case scenario and not run from it, it kind of calms you inside. And I want you to try this. I know it sounds nuts, but what is the absolute worst case scenario on something that you've been fearing? What is something that you've been avoiding? And what is the worst case scenario if you went and did it? Would you fail? Okay, maybe you failed. And yeah, it sucks to fail. People might judge. But is that really the worst thing that could happen? Yes, it feels like it in the moment. But what if? Yes, I failed, but that was just a redirection and a new opportunity showed up. And if you succeeded at that thing you failed at, well, then you wouldn't be able to do this even greater thing that showed up in your field. So it's just trusting that if you're able to push yourself through these fears, if you're able to still show up and do the thing, even though it's fearful, it proves to yourself that you are capable and you could conquer anything. If I could do something that absolutely terrified me, jumping 15 foot off a cliff into water, and I survived, I could do anything. If I could do that, I could easily make $100 million. I can make $10 million. It's doing these things anyways, even if they're terrifying, even if you don't know the outcome, but doing them because you know you can do hard things. And so when you allow yourself to actually feel what the worst case scenario could happen, it allows your body to feel into it and know, okay, I could do the worst things. I could do things that are very uncomfortable, but I could do it and I could survive it. I could live to tell the tale. And think of it that way. You might have a really good story to tell if the worst case scenario happened. And just playing with it. Don't take it so seriously. You are more capable than you realize. And I think the more that you allow yourself to be uncomfortable, feel that worst case, the more that you're able to have the best case scenario. Because the opposite of worst case is best case. And it's more likely the best case because you're here for a reason, you're listening, you are accomplished some level of success. So it's more likely that you'll be able to reach that best case scenario than the worst case. And just knowing that, I don't know, it's a weird comfort. So I want you to do that today. What is something you've been avoiding? What is the worst case that would happen if you went for that, if you pushed past your fears and did it anyways? And then what is the best case? I want you to just play with that. See what comes up. Share with me. I love hearing your stories and what comes up for you and what you get from these episodes. So that's what I want to leave today. What is the worst case scenario on something that you've been fearing? And like always, please subscribe, leave a review, share this episode if you would love someone else to hear this message. I think it's pretty powerful, and I think there's nothing to be ashamed of having fears and these worries. And I think the more we talk about them, the more they are normalized. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So again, thank you for listening. And as always, until next time, keep rebelling, keep rising.